I want to go over some more of the classic tabletop role-playing games I'm going to cover in 2026. This year, I would say it's like I'm going through a journey, through the golden age of tabletop role-playing games. And I'm not doing it just to live in nostalgia. I think we should learn from them. And I think there's so much pettiness and arguing that some things in life here just get missed. There's some real value in the past that has been ignored by some of the companies and new game designers. Stuff that, well, maybe you want to make a game. Maybe you need a new idea. Oh, what don't you know? Well, there's a lot, I guarantee a lot of you don't even know that's already been here, already existed. And some of the best ideas for designing tabletop role-playing games and just coming up with ideas for them exist better in the past. There's better examples and things to learn there than there is in the modern day, gaming that we're doing now. So I figured I'd take you out of the commercial mindset of game design and take you back to a pure time when nerds, more like just us, were making these games from scratch, where there was no guarantees and you didn't know what would work and it's all experimenting. There's a lot to learn there, and there's a lot that has been left in the past. And we don't need to leave it there. There's a lot of stuff that would be good now, right? That has really been left behind. So by ignoring it, calling it only nostalgia, means you might miss a lot of this, and I want to make sure people have an opportunity of looking back at the past and seeing these details. So what I really do is I cover what the designer said, what the company said, what the market said. So I want to teach you the sort of overview of these things. My coverage is not about teaching you how to play a game. And there's many people out there that do that and do it well. Take you through the steps, the pages, they show you the books, they talk about the specific rules and what this means here, here, and here. I don't do that. I do a bit of an overview, but what I'm really doing is focusing on the market, designers, and their ideas in the process of making these games. And those ideas, to me, is where the value is. There's a million rules, right? We don't need to worry too much on the rules, but what got them there? These things, these triggers, all that is a lot of stuff forgotten. And it inspires ideas that you don't see today because these ways of approaching things are no longer really practiced in the same way. Okay, let's get into it. So here is a list of the games I'm going to go over, and this is not all of them. I'm just this is the next batch of games. We'll put it that way. I'll give you a tiny rundown on each so you can understand what they are. So hey, if you want to come check out that stream, you can. Let's start off with the first one. Tunnels and Trolls 1975. One of the earliest games to come out after the birth of the tabletop role-playing game hobby. It's something it's definitely going after the Dungeons and Dragons, stuff, the medieval fantasy. But it has some interesting takes. The mechanics are very simple. Combat is very straightforward. And there's a good amount of humor in the game. And that's actually a bit of a focus when it comes to Tunnels and Trolls. But there's one other reason I want to cover Tunnels and Trolls. There's a lot of people that like solo tabletop role-playing games, right? I figured, why not look at one of the earliest, games that really gives some love to solo tabletop role-playing gaming. And Tunnels and Trolls does just that. So it's medieval fantasy, so it's not too far away from D&D. But the mechanics are simple and easy, and there's good humor in there. And if you, way back in the day wanted to try solo gaming, well, this thing got you covered on that. So I figured I'd cover that for the solo guys, but I'm pretty sure other people played Tunnels and Trolls with their group of friends, in the past. And this is a gem that is worth covering, I promise you. And then I'm going to cover Traveler, 1977. Traveler is honestly one of the most influential sci-fi tabletop role-playing games ever made. Oh, sci-fi, interstellar empire, politics, mercenary work. It covers everything, man. There's some deep role play to be explored in Traveler. It is not Dungeons and Dragons, and it makes itself quite clear on that, right? You're going to have a bit of a different experience. You're going to focus on some areas that usually D&D is not intending to lean into. This thing leans into it. It can be a little complicated on some of the mechanics. It can take a minute to learn, but it's a minute worth your time. And it is honestly one of the most influential sci-fi tabletop role-playing games ever. And it's something I can't pass by whatsoever. Came out in 1977. Rolemaster came out in 1980. I call it sort of a brutal medieval fantasy game. It leaned into things in a way that I found D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, didn't. It was realism off the charts, and there were a lot of charts and critical hit charts. So if you want to see a sort of brutal version of medieval fantasy, Rolemaster got you covered. Then I'm going to cover Aftermath from 1981, a post-apocalyptic world where people are now coming out of, the devastation and trying to survive and rebuild. Oh yeah, it's what this is focused on. I mean, it's exactly what you expect the game to be when you hear Aftermath. Yeah, it's a brutal survival game. Many tabletop role-playing games were not about winning. They were about surviving. And with Aftermath, well, that's exactly what you're trying to do, survive. And it's a different timeline. It's not medieval fantasy, right? It's a lot of fun, and we're going to lean into it. Pendragon, 1985, focuses on King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. It's all about knighthood. It's not really about dungeon crawling. It's about honor, chivalry, and stuff like this. It really focuses on the knight's life. If you want to live as a knight, you want to play a game that focuses on what would matter to them, well, this is where you come to Pendragon, right? And you'll be able to play a knight. Focus on things that normally, say games like D&D would never put too much focus on. You're in a dungeon there. Well, you're not in a dungeon here. It's all about, the politics, the rank, your social status, what you earn through honor, your actions. So, role play outside of combat here is deeply important to the game. Say the wrong thing, you could dishonor someone. Say the right thing, well, you could be made part of the family. Who knows, right? That's how it works. The life of a knight. Focused around fantasy, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And they're not going after real world knights, so you could pick that subject apart to pieces. This idea is going after the knights of fantasy and story. The ones you heard about. But the real world gives you a lot of gray, right, in that area. Might take away from some of these sort of fantasy tropes around knights. Pendragon just leans into it. And says, all right, real world, take a break. We're going to focus on the cool, fantasy idea of what a knight is. Now, of course, some of it definitely has truth in the real world, but it's not exactly as it is. So that's Pendragon for you, the life of a knight and what that means. And that's what you're going to focus on when you're playing that game. Star Wars 1987. Folks, what can I tell you? Do I need to tell you what Star Wars is? And no, this game tries to cover everything Star Wars is. I don't feel like there's a lot for me to pitch here, right? It's an older game. You need to hear about the details during the stream I'm going to do about this. But it does try to cover everything Star Wars. So if you understand Star Wars, I don't really need to do a pitch here. And if you don't exactly know what Star Wars is, do me a favor. Go check it out. It was a game from let me see, West End Games, right? Very fast-paced game, cinematic, right, to put you on edge. You know, it's trying to be Star Wars. Well, we can look it over, and if you haven't tried it before, you can go try it, maybe, find out if that's true. A lot of people love the game. A lot of people praise the old Star Wars game and say, yeah, it did get a lot right? Nothing's perfect, but we're definitely going to look at the sort of birth of attempting to go after Star Wars as a tabletop role-playing game theme. Then we're going to cover Cyberpunk 1988. Let me check here. It was designed by Mike Pondsmith. It's a futuristic timeline of us. It's not like in space. It's not like Star Trek in that way. But imagine all the things you could think of, like, you know, nanotechnology, all the advancements of AI and computers and everything else. That's what you're going to see here. A sort of a punk world, right? It's not like an aftermath exactly, but what happens to the world as you provide all this sort of insanity through technology and replacing body parts with all this new tech? What happens when we get to that world? Is it crazy? Is it this? Well, Cyberpunk gives you a take on the world that is, you know, it's a mixed bag. It is definitely a mixed bag of people that are a little out there taking advantage of technology and trying to mix themselves around just normal, everyday people that are still living in this new technological age of advancement, AI, and everything else. If you want to look at a game that is trying to predict where we might be, say, in the next 100 years, Cyberpunk definitely is taking a little poke at that and giving you some ideas. Some people have actually said that the person who made Cyberpunk got a lot of predictions within the game right for what we see in the world today. So is he going to keep being right? Oh, we're going to find out. So I think it's worth taking a look at that game, right? So let's do that. So we talked about Aftermath. That's a more, you know, closer to modern day aftermath type after the apocalypse. But what about a game based on a medieval apocalypse and surviving after that? That's where you run into a game called Earth Dawn. You know, that came out in 1993. Right? So I want to cover that because the game really ties itself to the setting, unlike many other games I've ever seen before. The setting is so deeply important to what Earth Dawn is. And I want to go over that. What is survival like after a magical apocalypse, right? In a different timeline. What is that like? Well, there is no way of predicting it. But we're going to look at the person that made the game and see what did they come up with, right? It is really worth it. It is, you know, the apocalypse in a much earlier age. And it's just a unique take on the game. It's medieval fantasy. But it's like, say you took the Forgotten Realms and you blew it up and said, okay, what's it look like afterwards and who survives this whole thing? Well, there you get Earth Dawn. Castle Falkenstein came out in 1993. A very odd game made by Mr. Cyberpunk, Mike Pondsmith. I have a little bit written down here for it because I had to remind myself of what this was. It has a romanticized version of Victorian Europe where there's magic, fairies, and steampunk technology coexisting. One of the earlier games that tried to use something other than dice, instead of dice, it tries to use playing cards, right, to play the game. So I figured it's an odd game that a lot of people I know have never heard about it until I mention it to them. I've talked to some Cyberpunk fans that will know about this game, but not many people. So I figured, well, I imagine there's a lot of you out there that have not heard of Castle Falkenstein. Well, we're going to take a look at it. You know, really role-play heavy stuff like that. It should be interesting. So we'll have a good peek at that and have a laugh together. All that good stuff. And there's another recent game, Alternity, that came out in 1998. It was put out by WotC, but it was created by TSR. It's basically one of the last, you know, there are some products at the end of TSR that just never came out. So when WotC privately goes in and purchases this stuff and starts taking it, well, they have to bring this stuff out. But it came out with still, like, I think a TSR, logo still on it. Some products came out with the TSR logo, not with any WotC logo, because it's almost like we bought it, but we have not established ourselves. And we still have TSR, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. So we'll just use them. Even though we're the ones putting it out, we'll use that company. So you'll get some products that WotC put out that still have the TSR logo on the product, right, at the time. But TSR is officially no longer an independent company at that point that owns that thing, right? Just saying. Alternity is, it's an interesting game. Look, I'm not going to go into the details on this one because I just want to leave this a mystery. Alternity is just a very out there game, very interesting way of playing the game, and you have to adjust to it. But it can be a lot of fun. It really can. And that one will leave this a mystery. I'm outside of the name. We'll move on. Okay, let's go to the last game I'm going to cover, or at least talk about here. Now, of course, this is just the current batch I'm on. There will be other streams I'm doing for stuff related to OSR and whatnot. And later today, you'll start seeing these get scheduled up on my streams. So let's talk about the last game I'm going to cover here. Little Fairs, that came out in 1999, where you're playing children. It's the idea of it's almost like a horror game made for children, playing on children's fairs, right? So if you want to know what it's like to be young, and here, let me go. Little Fairs is a horror RPG with an unsettling twist. The players take on the roles of children confronting monsters that lurk in the dark corners of their world. The game explores themes of childhood imagination, fear, and vulnerability in a way few RPGs had attempted before. By blending innocence with horror, Little Fairs creates a uniquely airy, scary atmosphere where everyday places, closets, basements, and bedrooms can hide terrifying secrets. Sorry, I had to write that down and just give it to you that way. I have not experienced a game in a long time. It's hard for me just right now as I'm really taking in a lot of the material just to come up with this stuff off the top of my head. Just really get it right so you understand. I don't want to confuse anybody about what that game is meant to be, right? What that game is. It's a horror game where just imagine what's under your bed. You're playing the kid, what's in the closet where the kid is scared, right? But the difference is, in this game, those things can be very real. There is a monster under your bed. There is a monster in the closet, right? And it ain't Disney, right? It's not that monster. It's the monster that really will eat you. It's like, oh man, I'm scared of the boogeyman. Well, you should be in this game because the boogeyman is a thing. Get it? And it's a interesting thing for adults to do. Go in and you have to take on the mindset of a child, right? And then just go, all right, how do you react to what could be in the closet? And as an adult, you realize, because you're the player, that there can be something in the closet to be worried about, right? So hopefully it's playing on your mind, and it's not just, oh, you're playing a horror game where you, oh, that's interesting. We hope it's a little bit more than interesting, where it's like, you're told you're laying in the bed, it's like, oh yeah, there's like a noise in the closet. As a player, you got to go, oh crap, damn, that could really be something. Like it's not like you just heard a noise in the closet and go back to sleep. You go back to sleep, make a new character. So I hope these games sound very interesting to you. This is my next batch of old school games from that golden era of tabletop role-playing games. It doesn't mean I won't be mixing in some OSR products in between there. And like I said, I'm going to do some more casual tabletop role-playing game streams where it's more about really interacting with you and not reading from something, right? You know, a lot of this I'm doing is sort of something we can come back to later. You know, it's like just facts. That's all this is. So this year I'm doing a fact-based approach to these topics. Like, and I mean on everything. Facts meaning I share my own opinion, but I separate my opinions from the facts. And when I say facts, what I mean is this. I cover the games like this, like what were the designers saying, what were the companies saying, what was the market saying, what maybe competitors might be saying, and just take that accurate public information and then putting it into these streams where everything I'm saying, it might be their opinion, not mine, but at least this is what the designer thinks. This is what the market says about this game. And that's it. There's no opinions going into the material. Now, what I mean is, when I'm on the fact-based stuff, I stay on there, but I will then add a comment after some of these things. I separate my own personal comments so you understand, here's the facts, and then here's my opinion. I do that so I can casually talk to people between reading a bit of a script for them based on the stream, right? That's just to do that. But I've been doing a lot of them, and that means there's a lot more giving you the information than there is me focusing on just casually talking to you, my audience, right? So I definitely want to have a few streams where I know I can just talk about stuff that is going to be pretty solid, really down the middle, and I can talk better off the top of my head about some of these things. Yeah. But going back and refreshing on this stuff has been great. Has been fantastic. And I have a wide experience, so I'm touching on things that I personally just have encountered myself. That's all I'm doing. And I've played in a lot of games. I mean, a lot of games. I never ran every single game that I'm going to cover, but I played in them or played a module. Like, I played a lot. My first 10 years, I did this, well, from 1987 to the year 2000, I was a player. From 1991 to forever, I being a game master. So I comboed the game master player situation from 1991 to the year 2000. And then the year 2000, I call it my retirement from playing year. I had so many offers to keep playing. People would beg me. I got bored of playing. I really did. I'm a dedicated DM. You'll hear about these forever game masters. I'm not a forever game master because I've always had a game being offered to me. I've never not had games be offered to me. Always. And I'm not trying to brag. And I'm sorry if other people never had that experience where they had all these games to play and they had to be the forever game master. It's just that's a situation for some people. It wasn't for me. But for some reason, I got bored of it. I got cursed. I'll tell you something. When I first started in 1987, I ran into, well, the best game master I have ever encountered. Period. And you might think, well, that's a good thing. Maybe. And it was. Like, I have no regrets. I love the man. I love my experience with it. But it did do something that sort of cursed me going forward. He was so good that afterwards I couldn't find anybody that could live up to it. I could, for the first 10 years, or for the first 5 years after, really stopping his game, I could find enjoyment by my own energy I brought as a player. But at a certain point, because I'm not playing under his game, and I feel like everybody I'm encountering is not on par with him, it goes from I'm having some fun to it'd be nice to find a guy who's closer to that so I can have that experience again or something close to it. I never found that guy. And I found some great game masters. But, I mean, he was top-notch. Top-notch. Because what we do as game masters, I don't want to go too far into it. Put it this way. We have a social contract with you players where you have agreed to allow me to manipulate you with information. Right? And I don't use the word manipulate to say bad. I mean, I'm creating a positive experience by not telling you something or telling you something. It's you're allowing me to control information. It's a social agreement. Because the idea is by you allowing me to do this, you have a good time playing a game, right? And that's the outcome. And there's no messing with your mind or me messing with you. I just want to make sure when I use language like that you don't confuse what I'm saying, right? Manipulate as in, that's what you're doing with information as a game master. Just saying, that's a correct way of describing it. He was, I call it like a master, at this craft. Military guy. It's something he specialized in. And he was so good at it that he could get my mind to a place in my imagination so deep that I've never met another person who could even try that or even get close to it, except for myself. Because I was under him and he was my mentor as a DM, I learned a lot of tricks from him. And so I like pure theater of the mind for that reason. I like to stay there because it's what he taught me that's where the game is, at least for me. That was my excitement. And I want to bring that to other people. So I like to get inside of the imagination and stay there just like he did and run you in that the whole time. Like just be on that intense edge of here, right? And so I made that my mission to become that game master. Yeah. If I can't find the game master that would make me happy, I'll become the game master that would make a player like me happy. And that's what I did. So I say I retired in the year 2000. I played off and on, but I've never completed a campaign. I do filler roles. I do that for friends. That's me being kind to friends and helping people learn how to game master. I have no problem doing that. And that's so when I say retire, I just mean I retired as a serious player. So I'd fill in, but he'd be like, hey man, would you have fun playing the game? No, I'll pass. Would you fill in to help us? Yeah, I can do that. So I would be friendly and show up for people, because I do that. But no, I've never seriously played since. And to this day, I have no interest. I find playing the games boring, to be real. So there you go. That's me. That's a little bit of my past. And we're going to the golden age of tabletop role-playing games. And we're going to cover it. We're going to cover it all this year. All kinds of stuff. So I hope you like this batch. I got a lot more to cover after this. I got all this work pretty much done already. I did it last year. I plan for this year in detail. And so I only want to tell you about so much at a time that I'm doing, instead of just blasting it all out there. I don't think that'd be any good for me. And you probably forget half the stuff I'm going to cover anyway. So it's to keep the hype train going on this stuff, is to give you sort of short packages. But yeah, I'm excited about this. I hope you are too.